Mira and HarlequinAudio present The Summer That Changed Everything, a novel, by Brenda Novak, performed by Courtney Patterson. To Pamela Record, a kind and generous member of my online book group on Facebook, Pam has worked tirelessly for years, without even being asked, to make well over 1,000 bookmarks for other book group members, which we've distributed in the Brenda Novak book boxes, a subscription box service that contains an autographed copy of the book we are reading that month, along with other fun reader-related goodies. Pam also buys at least one copy of each new book I publish to contribute to the small lending library in her community. Again, she's always thinking of others. She's one of the many wonderful people who make Brenda Novak's book group so special, and I'm not only grateful to her, I feel blessed to call her a friend. 1. Red Onion State Prison, near Pound, Virginia, April 16th. It had been 15 years since Lucy Sinclair last saw her father. She'd sat at his trial, as shocked and horrified by all that had been revealed as anyone else. There were those in the gallery who'd lost a loved one and felt profound grief and anger. Her heart broke for them, but she received no sympathy as they showed graphic pictures of her father's victims. That 3-month stretch, from the time the police had knocked on the door to the moment her father had been sentenced to life in prison, had felt like she'd been catapulted into the Twilight Zone. Except it was real. At 17, she was going through something that most of humanity would never experience. As she'd sat there alone, hoping and praying that, like he'd told her, none of what she was hearing was true, the other residents of North Hampton Beach, Virginia, where she and her father had been living for 4 years, the longest they'd stayed in any one place, had watched her suspiciously simply because she was related to him. Some believed she had helped him cover up his heinous crimes. She knew that from the attacks she'd received on social media before she'd pulled down her accounts. After he was arrested, the trailer they'd been renting had been vandalized. But she'd had absolutely no idea he'd done anything wrong. She'd admired her father. Unlike her mother, he'd stayed. He'd continued to take care of her, and she believed he would stand by her forever. Their relationship had seemed perfectly normal. The memory of his trial always brought a lump to her throat. In spite of everything, she'd missed him terribly. That wasn't something she could admit to anyone else, though. She hated to admit it even to herself. Maybe she wouldn't have felt his loss quite so acutely if she'd had any siblings or other family, people to love and support her in his absence. But she didn't. And once he'd gone to prison, she'd cut off all contact, changed her last name to something she saw on a gas station sign, to break that connection, and soldiered on alone, rambling around the United States in a beat-up old van she'd purchased with what little money she could scrape together by selling his tools and their furniture. While other girls went to college, she'd anesthetized herself with drugs and made what gas and grocery money she could playing poker, something she was surprisingly good at. So good that she'd eventually landed in Vegas, and it was how she made her living to this day. She'd never gotten a degree, and other than a few restaurant jobs, she'd never had a boss, a 401k, or a regular paycheck. She clasped her hands to keep them from shaking while she sat on the small, cracked vinyl stool and waited for prison staff to bring Mick from his cell to the other side of the thick plexiglass. She'd never been inside a prison before, had never felt so ill at ease, except at his trial. She almost got up and left, several times. It was a beautiful spring day outside, perfect weather. The life she'd painstakingly built was out there as well, 2,000 miles away. But she'd come because she hadn't been able to forget something he'd said. She'd purposely disregarded it once she realized he had to be a shameless liar. And yet, his words troubled her late at night, when she couldn't keep the more painful memories locked in the deeper recesses of her mind. She was finally clean, stable, and strong. If she was ever going to do this,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?